For those of you 2017 and newer Suzuki SV650 owners who want to remove some weight, improve the looks, and ensure you never have to carry a passenger again on your motorcycle, Vagabond Motorsports is introducing our exhaust hanger kit, which is going to replace your factory passenger pegs with this lightweight bracket. Now, just to go over a couple of the details of the exhaust hanger kit for the SV650 from Vagabond Motorsports. It's going to be a 3D formed. You can see it kind of has several kind of out of plane bends to match up with the SV650 subframe and exhaust. It's a CNC laser cut and CNC bent piece of 1/8 inch thick steel. It's going to be obviously extremely lightweighted, but still remaining a lot of stiffness. It is covered in a 2-stage finish, so galvanized and then UV resistant black satin powder coat, so very corrosion resistant and durable finish. Comes with a full set of stainless steel hardware to replace the longer screws, so 2 of the screws are slightly shorter. Those are for the top 2 bolts, 1 slightly longer bolt for the lower exhaust mount, 2 washers for up top. We're actually going to borrow a couple pieces of the factory hardware, and we'll go over that in the installation procedure, but the big fender washer and the flange nuts, we'll use those from the factory setup. Now you're going to need a really simple set of tools to complete this installation. You can either use standard kind of L-key Allen wrenches, or I prefer these socket style inserts, but in a 5 and a 6 millimeter size to remove and reinstall and install the exhaust bracket. You're also going to need a 12 millimeter wrench to hold the nut at the back side of the muffler. I think it's worthwhile just to show just how much weight you can actually ditch by removing your passenger pegs. So if we take the passenger pegs complete with the hardware that we're not going to reuse, so we're not going to double dip and put the hardware that we are going to reuse on the scale, you can see we're right about 3.7 pounds. Now the easy way to do that math is just to tear the scale out, zero it, and we pull these guys off, so you should say negative of that amount. So we put on our exhaust bracket and the hardware that we're actually going to reuse, which is the hardware included, as well as the 2 pieces of hardware that we're going to reuse from the factory setup. And you'll see this installation cuts about 3 pounds off the subframe. So you combine that with aftermarket exhaust, fender eliminator, maybe even battery, and you start to really contribute to reducing weight, which you'll notice in the canyons and certainly out on the track. So it's a meaningful addition to pulling weight off the bike. Now the installation procedure for these are dead simple. You're going to do it obviously on both sides of the bike to pull your passenger pegs, but we'll do, just for the purposes of this video, I guess the slightly more complicated side, the exhaust side. You're going to take your 5 millimeter insert and you're going to remove the 2 bolts on the subframe and then the 1 on the exhaust on the muffler tab, and during that process you're going to need to put that 12 millimeter wrench on the back side of that nut so it just doesn't spin. Now you can either use your socket, if you've got a power driver like this, it'll make the process a little faster, but you're going to want to break those bolts, and there will be a significant amount of kind of blue Loctite on those bolts, so they'll be a little tight to remove. But loosen them at least a fraction of a turn on every, each of the 3 bolts first, so you don't bind one up, but then you can go ahead and remove the exhaust hanger, or the passenger peg and exhaust hanger. So you set that aside, and one of the things you heard drop out of that was this big fender washer, and that's hanging out behind the bushing on the factory muffler mount. So we're going to keep that, as well as the flange nut. Everything else, including this long bolt, we're going to set aside and not reuse. So if you switch from the 6 millimeter to the 5 millimeter, we can go about starting the process of installing the exhaust hanger. And so the process is pretty simple. You're going to kind of mock up the hanger, and you can see this, the rear tab is going to be one that kind of steps back towards the center of the motorcycle, and we're gonna, this part of the flange is gonna hang out behind the muffler tab, and the stack up that we're gonna use is going to be on the frame mounts. We're going to use the shorter, so there's going to be 2 shorter screws. You're going to put one of the supplied stainless steel washers over it, and those are going to be what we use for the top 2 subframe bolts. And it's worth it just to start all these by hand with a couple threads so that you avoid the chance of cross threading, which will really cause a challenge if that happens. Then we're going to take the factory fender washer, put it on the longer of the 3 bolts supplied, and install that through the muffler and then the exhaust hanger. And then on the back side of our hanger, we're going to reinstall that flange nut. And you're going to take your 12 millimeter wrench on the back side of that nut, and your 5 millimeter, and there's going to be a little bit of play here, and that's good, but you're going to want to tighten each of these a little bit at a time, just to make sure there's no binding. And if you use one of these power drivers, I always recommend you do the final torque with a regular socket, just so that you get actually like a really good feel for what the tightness is without stripping out any of the bolts or making them loose. Because the nice thing is, there should be this kind of style of bracket is going to tune out some of the vibrations, kind of like a big steel leaf spring, but you do want to tighten these back up. You can use a blue Loctite on these bolts if you want to. It's not absolutely required, but it's always good practice kind of on any bolt that's going to have some vibration going through it. So let's do a final check on these 3, and that's it. You're good to go. Just give you a quick walk around view of the completed bracket. Thank you guys for watching this video. Our products can be found direct on our website, www.vagabondmotorsports.com. Also be found on Amazon for your Prime members and eBay. Thank you very much.